Hello and welcome to Losses Above Replacement, the greatest baseball podcast, two great series. I'm today's host, Mathias Altman Kurosaki, and with me, as always, we have my amazing co-hosts, Ryan Splash Potts and Alex Clark. Gentlemen, first things first, we're recording this on a Sunday afternoon, at least afternoon on the East Coast. How are we all doing today?
Doing okay. My voice is a little gone right now, but we're making it do. Just been having some kind of throat issues lately, but I'm doing really good. I have some cool prospects coming up here in a little bit, hopefully, keeping fingers crossed on a job. So, you know what? We ball. Let's go.
Absolutely. I forgot to bring my headphones into work last night, so I wanted to kill myself for a couple hours. So that was solid. But then I spent the next 5 hours naming baseball players to myself. So that was fun. So we had the Bob Elliott's, the Bob Ferguson's, the Franklin Gutierrez's, Derek Jeter's, Tyro Estrada's. It was a fun time.
That actually sounds like a wonderful time. That's I don't know. That's just that sounds like a swell time. I feel like that's something I used to do with myself back in the long car rides, just me and
Mhm.
my parents or something, and
Yeah,
that's
like
what would be
I
going on in my head.
I'd
Yeah.
play the game. I'd start like say Bobby Abreu, so BA, and then I'd pick an A player, so
Oh yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah.
Abraham Almonte, and then another A player,
Yeah.
like
I remember doing those.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
so on and so forth. I got stuck on Q for a while, and then about 2 hours later, I had a Quinn Priester like
Quinn Priester. Yeah.
epiphany. It's like okay, yeah, that's a guy.
Nice. I
Yeah.
was always that weird like person on on like the road trips that would be like trying to like count out the post and trying to do like a parkour stuff over as like the post would come into. I don't know if you ever like there's always like an imaginary person like on the road. So
Oh
like that was like
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
hopping through it and then doing like tricks as he's landing on each post and jumping
yes.
off.
hmm
Yeah, that's what I would always
Now
do.
now I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I see
Yeah.
your vision.
I'd say I'm doing all right. I got to sleep a bit this week. I don't know. I went to bed before midnight twice, which is not very common for me. But yeah, I'm doing all right, I'd say. There was definitely some big news. Let's jump into today's agenda. There was the Baltimore Orioles, let's just say they had themselves quite a week. First, they got new owners. The Angelos family has sold to the Rubenstein Group, which includes Cal Ripken Jr., Orioles legend. And then maybe about a day later, they acquire former Cy Young Award winner Corbin Burnes. I mean, this was I the it was already shocking to hear that there was going to be a sale of the team, but then to hear that they are getting Corbin Burnes. We knew that the Orioles needed pitching, and they actually spend. This is like for them, this is a pricey contract. It's a rental, yes, but he's making 13, almost 14 million this year. Guys, give me your reaction to this news because this was a huge week for that franchise.
Yeah, like my first thought when I heard the sale was finally, because we had been hearing a lot about that the team was going to be at least potentially put up for something. To be fair, I still thought the Angels one would have happened first, but we we had talked a lot about how the team needed to be sold with how the owners were viewing the contracts of young players such as like Ali Rushman and Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holiday, all that kind of stuff. And so we're trying to figure out, like, okay, is it real what we're hearing from them? Like, if this is really what they're going to be doing here, then there's no real reason we should be listening. It's like we should be watching this team because you're going to see these young guys here, yeah, but then they're going to go succeed somewhere else when their rookie contracts come out. And we all kind of ostracized the team, saying, "Hey, that is a dumb idea. Pay your young guys, pay your guys that are going to be the stars of your franchise." And but when the move, like when the sale happened, my first thought was, okay, hopefully the new owners are actually going to want to pay the young players to get them to stay here for a bit. And when I heard that Cal Ripken Jr. was part of it, I'm like, oh, there's people that want this team to win here. They're like, this is actually is going to be a good thing. And then it was reaffirmed a little bit later with the acquisition of Corbin Burnes. Like this team is very much like win now, right now, but also still has a nice little playoff window on it. Their young guys are still coming up. Their young guys are playing well. So getting a bona fide number one ace is a really good way of saying, hey guys, we're here, we're ready to play, and we are going to win. Like, I love the move. I absolutely love it. Yes, it did cost a good bit for the Orioles, especially giving up DL Hall. But at the same point, like, you're getting a guy who is a Cy Young Award winner, is constantly in the Cy Young conversation. His biggest downside is that you have injury concerns about him. But even then, he's kind of battled past a lot of those. So honestly, I love the move here for the Orioles. The sequence of what has happened over the last week has been impressive for them, and it's really helped shift a lot of the mantra and shift a lot of the narrative on them going forward.
So one thing that's important to point out, David Rubenstein is a fan of the Baltimore Orioles. It is sort of Steve Cohen-esque. Mac knows what I'm talking about.
That's what I was thinking.
When a
Yes.
fan purchases the team, it's a different vibe than when like Liberty Media owns the Braves, right? So that's like a detached entity. David Rubenstein is rooting for his team, right? This is not a strictly a business venture. This is a win. Two, the F word that came to my head was fleece. To me, this was the equivalent of someone being allergic to peanuts and trading away a peanut butter jelly sandwich. With all due respect to DL Hall, with all due respect to
Joey Ortiz.
Joey Ortiz, they were not going to be in Baltimore's main plans. Baltimore's infield is full. They have Gunnar Henderson, they have Jackson Holliday, they have Jordan Westberg, and you're not going to put Joey Ortiz at first base. And DL Hall was probably going to be a reliever for them. So they traded a player who was not in their plans in their infield, a player who was going to be a reliever, and a first-round competitive balance pick for a potential Cy Young Award winner. And yes, Corbin Burnes has declined the last couple of years. I get that. He's not quite as good as he was in 2021. He's a little bit of a fit merchant. I get it. But this was huge for Baltimore to do this. Baltimore is practically no money allocated to the next couple of years. The only real contract they have is Felix Bautista, and that's because he got injured. Of course, they have arbitration guys coming up, Adley and co., but they have no real money on the books the next couple of years. So go spend it, right? And finally, go get a guy by the name of Jordan Montgomery. Shout out to No More Fielders for this, but you can have the ace duo of Montgomery Burnes. So
Yeah, that's the thing is, yes, Burnes is on a 1-year contract, but I'm thinking back to, the Steve Cohen, like the first year of the Steve Cohen era when they traded for Lindor. Lindor was a rental, and then he went ahead and extended it. I think this is a case where the Orioles got Burnes, and I could see him staying there. He, he's a former Cy Young winner. He's been an all-star each of the last 3 years. He's won the ERA title. I think, this is the ace that the Orioles needed. In my opinion, my biggest concern with this team going forward was their starting pitching. And to your point, I think that Joey Ortiz and DL Hall are both, borderline top 100 guys in terms of prospect rankings. Hall, I definitely considered a reliever going forward. Hard throwing lefty. He's got good stuff, but I just don't see him panning out as a starter necessarily. I think this is a guy. I think Hall, especially, is a guy who can succeed in Milwaukee, where it seems like they churn out great pitchers like it's nothing these days. I think Ortiz also probably wasn't going to succeed in Baltimore because he's blocked at every position. That's the issue, like what you were saying, Splash. I think assuming that the Orioles are able to extend Burnes, this is a major win for them. Also worth noting that Miller Park, or not Miller Park, American Family Field, sorry, that's what it's called now, is a more hitter-friendly ballpark these days. And ever since the Orioles pushed the fence back and raised the height of the fence in left field at Camden Yards, it's become more of a pitcher-friendly park, in my opinion. So I think that Burnes will definitely succeed there. So I think this is a great trade for Baltimore. I think they now have a strong chance to repeat atop the AL East, especially with their core position players getting better. The AL East is going to be a bloodbath. That's the thing. You've seen the Yankees get Juan Soto, the Orioles get Burnes. The The Rays, they always find ways to win. The Jays, while they haven't necessarily made a lot of moves, they still have a solid roster. The Red Sox are really the only team that hasn't done much. That really hasn't done enough to move the needle, in my opinion, from last
Yeah.
place. With all due respect to the Red Sox, they're not a bad team necessarily, but in a strong division, they're not really a contender.
I think at this point, like, yeah, when it comes to the Red Sox, like they're going to they know what position they're in. Like they know that, all right, we're not winning. They know that like every other team in that division is stacked. Like again, the team that was projected to potentially finish last year finished first with over 100 wins for the Orioles, and now they just got better. Like, what more do you want from them? Like, if you're the Red Sox right now, you're probably just like, all right, you know what? Not going to fully Oakland A's it, but you're going to, just kind of stand pat, let some young guys play, get some experience. Know you're not going to win the division, and just go from there. As for the
thing, yeah.
For the Orioles, though, like I have a question for you guys before we keep going too much farther here. So we've already seen now 2 dominoes fall for the team. We've seen the team being sold and them signing Corbin Burnes. I brought up a little bit ago about that one of the biggest problems we had with the previous ownership group was that they had no plans to re-sign their big young talent. So let's assume for right now that the new ownership group wants to re-sign that talent. Who's the first one to get an extension, you think? Or
Are we talking about
their
position players or their
anybody? I'm talking about anybody that like of the young guys.
It's probably
I would
Rushman.
extend Adley first.
Yeah,
I would
Adley's 100%
extend
the
Adley,
answer.
then Gunnar, and then Holiday, and then I would keep going down the list. I would extend Westberg. I would because Baltimore used to be a pretty big market team. They used to be maybe not with the Yankees, but they were in the top 5 in spending in the 90s, and then they became more middle of the pack in the last 2 decades, and now before the Burnes contract, they were 29th in spending, only ahead of the Oakland A's, and we know the A's situation. Yeah. You're telling me the Pirates are spending more than a team that just won 100 games? And I know that that's a feather in their cap, but there are a lot of regression metrics that you can look at and say, okay, they overperformed a little bit. They were really lucky in 1-score games. They were exceptional at sequencing, and Mac is a fan of the 2020 Mets. You can attest that sequencing is difficult. They sequenced unbelievably well. They were awesome in like clutch situations, 2 outs, 2 strikes, whatever the metric was. They were awesome at it, but they were generally just good otherwise. But they were just spectacular. It's like Julian Edelman in the playoffs. It's Julian Edelman is the Baltimore Orioles. That is the worst comp I've ever made.
I mean, I was going to say I don't quite get that there, but I'll say this: that the Orioles, I don't necessarily see them as an 100-win team again. Like you were saying, Splash, I think there is bound to be some regression there. Like, I don't expect Ryan O'Hearn to be a world beater again, or I don't expect all of their, I don't expect Kyle Bradish to be a 2.8 ERA guy again. But I do expect Grayson Rodriguez, with the progression he made in the second half, I expect him to be a good pitcher this year over the course of a full season. I will say, if he shows out the way I expect him to this year, I could see G-Rod getting an extension too. So I think he's maybe a little further down the totem pole behind the position players, but I would strongly consider extending G-Rod.
I don't know how far down I would put G-Rod down the list, just because like how important starting pitching is in baseball. That there's the old adage of you can never have enough starting pitching, and especially if he pans out even remotely like you think he's going to, being able to keep him on your roster for the long term is, I think, paramount. Do I think he's number 1? Absolutely not. I think that goes to Adley Rutschman and no other consideration. Like, he is the one that you're going to have to spend the most money on, but he's worth it. He is dang good. He is one of the reasons why you are in the position that you're at, because he came in for the word go and started balling out immediately. Like, what more do you want from him? I am a little bit curious to see how this next coming year is going to go for Adley, but I think that this is probably going to be as big of a prove-it year for him as you can get. We talk a lot about the sophomore slump and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's what he's going to be going through. It's going to be interesting to see for him if he can keep this going at the pace that we've been seeing from him. If he does it all, like even remotely lives up to the expectations, how do you not extend him? Like give him like the Julio contract, right? Do something like that that keeps him a Baltimore Oriole forever.
Yeah, it's also that he's a switch hitting catcher who can hit and field pretty well. So like I think he's probably the number one. He has to be the number one priority. I mean, I know I was the only one on here who put him at number one in our catcher rankings, but I think he is the best catcher in baseball, and he's young. So I think now is the time to capitalize. Now is the time to extend him before, because when if he does hit free agency, he's going to get a ton of money. So I think I think the Orioles, it's also I feel like the longest time the big moves that they've made, at least in terms of trades, have been them trading away players. I'm thinking back, Manny Machado, I mean, that's the thing with Machado, they waited until his contract year and then they didn't really get much in return for him. And then I know this is going to be a rough one for you, Alex, but Eric Bedard, that was them selling away a guy,
No,
and
I'm
they
aware. Yeah.
capitalized. That's the thing is,
Yeah.
they don't have a long track record of keeping their guys. I feel like, at least the one exception was Chris Davis, and unfortunately, Chris Davis that contract did not pan out very well. So, and that was the thing. That was another trade. They traded Koji Uehara to the Rangers and got Tommy Hunter and Chris Davis in return. So they've had some success in trading away their guys, but this is definitely a case where I would strongly advocate for them to keep all their guys. Any other final thoughts before we move on?
Yeah,
On the
I would
Orioles?
extend Adley ASAP. I know there's
Yep.
been bad, like I know some have gone poorly, and not in the Ken Rosenthal way because that was disgraceful. Like we've seen John Singleton and Scott Kingery, and there have been bad contracts. But if there's any player in baseball you would give the contract to, Adley's in your top 10.
Easy. Yeah.
Like if it doesn't work out,
100%.
okay, great. Well, we botched it on a guy who was the best catcher in baseball. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, like how do you not take a risk on Adley at that point, right?
That's exactly why you
Yeah,
take the risk.
100%.
What the
Exactly.
Braves
Yeah.
did with Ronald Acuna, what the Padres did with Fernando Tatis, and Tatis hasn't even been perfect. He missed a full season, and
Here's
it's
the thing.
still
The
a
first
banger
year
of
of
a
his
deal.
contract.
Yeah. Here's the big thing when it comes to Adley is that a lot of times when we see like a player that is given this early contract not succeed, they're a position player, like in the infield or the outfield, and all that, and that's fine. That makes sense. But when you're the catcher, there is a mental aspect to the game that is so different than when you're a middle infielder or an outfielder, anything like that, where you are the one controlling the game. That even if your bat doesn't quite hold up, and even if your defense maybe isn't great, you still know how to work with these pitchers. That's the reason why I'm so high on Cal Raleigh, is that you know how to work with pitchers, you know how to call a game, and you know how to work the hitters. That even if your bat does not fully hold up, even if your throwing arm, like for defense, doesn't go quite right, you are still making every one of your pitchers better, and that alone is worth a nice contract. Like having a good, strong-willed catcher that knows how to work a pitching rotation is paramount, I think, in baseball. And not only that, one, he's young. Two, he can hit. Three, he has defense. What more do you want? Like, this is the guy that needs to be extended yesterday. And again, just give him the Julio contract. Give him the contract that's going to make him a Baltimore Oriole for the rest of his life here, or at least until his mid-30s, like, or like mid to late 30s. Let him be the best in the game, and you're gonna have yourself potentially a World Series if you just keep on this train. Plus, you're also gonna be able to you're gonna build a lot more faith with your fan base after the sale of the team.
It's also that this, just to put a bow on it, is that it's been night and day for the Orioles since they got since they called Adley Rutschman up. So
Mm-hmm.
when they first called him up, they were 16-24. They lost his debut, so he was uh they were 8 games under 500 when they first called him up. Since then, they finished the rest of the year. They finished the year at 83-79. So they were a solid team from that point on. They were they were 67-54 the rest of the year. And then the next year they win 101 games. I mean, what more can you ask from the guy? Really? They basically have a 600 winning percentage since they called him up. He completely changed the tone of the franchise, in my opinion, the direction of the franchise. And I think, maybe his traditional counting stats don't jump off the page, but he's a franchise player, and
Mm-hmm.
I think they'd be wise to keep him. So anyway, let's move on to our next segment here. And we've been doing our positional rankings today. We are moving over to left field, our top 5 left fielders. Now, admittedly, bit of a weaker position, not a lot of star talent here. So let's go ahead and dive in. Who here wants to go first? Their number 5 left fielder. Splash, go on ahead.
Returning to my list, I have Ian Happ of the Chicago Cubs at number 5. He's just an average, like a better than average ball player, and that's the problem with left fielders this year, that the guys that you're considering here are wildly flawed players. Happ is generally good defensively. The range was not quite there last year in 2023, according to Statcast. He's a fine hitter. He walks. He hits for a little bit of power, lots of doubles power. So he's a good player. Definitely one of the lower quality number 5s on these lists, but that's not saying he's not a good player.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like for Ian Happ, he's not on my list. But that's not because I don't think he's good. I just like this is left field is such a hard list to make right now because there are some names that just don't make sense. Also, a lot of the really good names are we are classifying as designated hitters. So like you're not gonna see
Or
guys
right
like
fielders.
yeah, or right fielders or center fielders too.
Or center fielders, yeah.
Yeah, so like guys like Jordan don't make the list. The guys like Juan Soto don't make the list because they're somewhere else. So that makes the left field position really hard, which is why for me, my number 5, I have Chas McCormick. I think that Chaz is a pretty decent left fielder overall, pretty decent outfielder. Like when I look at the kind of player that he plays around the field a lot more just because Jordan is there. But I look at what he's got coming up for this year, and he's expected to be the number 1 left fielder with about 400 plate appearances projected again through Fangraphs. They say right now he's going to have a WOBA of about 329 here at a WAR of 1.7. I mean, that's not bad. Like for a guy that is, in my opinion, very defensive heavy with a good contact bat on him, I think he's going to be a decent guy. He's not going to be anyone's idea of a number 1, but with how weak the left fielder position group is, I don't think it's very far-fetched to say that he's number 5.
So I have Ian Happ too at number 5, and I'll say that he's helped out by the fact that I had Jordan Alvarez as my number 1, but the more we talked about it before the show, I can't consider Jordan a left fielder anymore. I think also I don't have Chas McCormick on my list. Again, I don't really consider McCormick a left fielder. That's the thing. In my opinion, he should be playing center, but Fangraphs has him listed as a left fielder. Apparently, he's going to be playing left field primarily. I'm assuming he will shift to center if Jordan plays the field. So Cap, I think actually he was an all-star for the first time in 2022, but I think he was a little better offensively at least in 2023. His defense did regress a bit. He did win another Gold Glove, but what I like 14% walk rate. That's great. That's the highest he's had over the course of a full season. Actually, that's a lie, 2018, but that was also a year he had a 36% strikeout rate. This year, he had a 22% strikeout rate, which is actually the lowest mark of his career. He had 21 home runs, which is more than he had in 2022. 84 RBIs, also more. Career high 14 steals, 791 OPS. I think overall, he's a guy who gets a check in every box. We've used that analogy a lot. He doesn't get a check plus in anything, but he's a solid all around ball player. Is he a superstar? No, but I think he's a solid ball player. He's at number 5. I'll give another couple honorable mentions, but Brian Reynolds just missed the cut in my opinion. Uh, what's it called? Yeah, Jordan Alvarez, like I said, was my number one going in. He can't be on the list because he's not a primary left fielder. Chas McCormick, also borderline for me. So Hap is our number five. So let's move on to or my number five and Splash's number five. I see we already have some differences in this list. So let's move on to number four. Alex, why don't you go first here? Who's your number four left fielder?
Yeah, so my number four is probably going to be a little more controversial because I think a lot of you guys have him like a lot higher there, and that's Brendan Nimmo. I think that Nimmo is an excellent ball player. I think he is very, very, very good. I put him at four purely because of injury concerns. Here, I think that he is a very good ball player, but it feels like I'm always like trying to watch him play, and I just don't get to see it. Like he's got a great bat on him, a good field, so he's a good fielder. He's not anyone's idea of a superstar like outfielder, like defensive wise, but he's solid. He's very, very good. I put him again definitely above guys like Chas McCormick, like we just talked for number five. But for that, like I really wanted to put him higher because I like a lot of this ball game. The three guys that I have ahead of him, I like for very specific reasons, whereas Nimmo is just a good overall player, but doesn't exceed as well in some of the other areas. So for that, again, I'm putting him at number four.
It's interesting you mentioned because early in his career, yes, injury concerns were definitely a real thing, but he's played 150 games each of the last 2 years. That's the thing. So I get where you're coming from though in the past. So I'll go ahead with my number four, and this is not a guy who was on my radar at all entering the season, but man, he was just fantastic this year, and that is Nolan Jones from the Colorado Rockies. Now, if you had told me before this season Nolan Jones A was going to be playing left field and B was going to be a top five left fielder, I probably would have just shook my head and straight up thought you were lying. But 2020 season this year, where did that come from? By the way, yes, he's a Rockies player, so he has to play half his games at Coors Field. Well, he actually had a higher OPS on the road. So take that, all you Coors haters. But yeah, 2020 season, 4.3 baseball reference WAR. It's weird. His defense is weird because defensive runs saved will tell you he's above average. Outs above average will tell you he's very below average. But his arm is arguably the best in the game, probably the best in the game right now. I know I'm a Stratomatic guy. Stratomatic dropped their fielding ratings for this past season, and he's a 4 out there, which means he's below average in terms of range, but he is the best arm in the game at -5, which means he's like literally you should never be running on him. So yes, he strikes out a lot, but he actually cut his strikeout rate down. His walks went up, hits the ball pretty hard. I'm a big Nolan Jones fan. I'm really excited to see how he does in a full season. So, and he's only 25, so he's my number four. Splash, who do you have at number four?
From one 2020 player to another, I have Randy Arozarena. He's actually done it 3 straight years, and he has the impressive feat of having 3 consecutive seasons with 20 home runs, 20 steals, and a 120 OPS plus. The problem is the slugging is going down year over year. He only had a 425 slug last year, although the on-base percentage was much higher. He had a 12% walk rate. Very impressive. Defensive metrics, again, all over the place. Below average according to StatCast, above average according to Baseball Reference. And he is a classic case of a bad volume base runner that he's been caught stealing double-digit times each of the last 3 seasons, but he's not stealing like a Ronald Acuna 70 bases or Estuary Ruiz 60 bases. He was 20 of 30 in 21. He was 32 of 44 last year and 22 of 32 in 2023. And it's just like, yeah, you're getting the volume of steals, but it's less effective. And you're playing every day, but it's less effective. And he's, seen as this 5-tool player, but at least 2 of the tools are a little suspect. The contact tool, he's a career 265 hitter. The slug tool, he's, a 425 slug last year, a 171 ISO, which isn't anything special. So I don't know. He's 4 and dropping in my list.
I get where you're coming from there. There definitely are concerns there. I personally am a big fan of Randy Arozarena, but I think I have him a little higher on my list. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and move to my number 3 spot. And maybe this is a bit of a reach, but like I said, this is not a super strong position. This is a guy who I think is going to be a strong player, at least uh, going forward. And he showed it this past postseason, and that is Evan Carter. Splash has a shocked look on his face. Trust me, like I said, there is not much star power at this position. With all due respect to all my left fielders out there, I think Evan Carter has a case to already be a top 5 left fielder. So I have him number 3. Yes, his strikeout rate is high. His walk rate though is 16%, which is great. Yes, he had a 4.12 BABIP, but I really like watching this guy play. He's got great plate discipline, in my opinion. He's in a full count almost every at bat. It feels like he was great in the postseason. I really loved watching him. He was great against the Rays. He was great against the Orioles. He had a solid World Series. Really, I think he did everything that team could have asked for, and I don't think they win the World Series without him. He's still rookie eligible. I think he's probably a favorite to win Rookie of the Year this year. I would love to see what he can do over the course of the full season. Plus, defensively, defensive run saves. I mean, he had 6 defensive runs saved in only 23 games in left field. So I think Carter, I know we do need to see more. By the way, he's very fast too. He is almost 30 feet per second as a sprint speed. But I got to put Carter at number 3. And there's a chance he could be higher on this list next year. I know this is definitely an aggressive take here, but I really like Evan Carter. I'm excited to see what he can do this year. So Splash, I mean, given your reaction, I want to hear, what do you have at number 3?
Yeah, I will say I'm a fan of Evan Carter. The batted ball metrics are not quite as good as you want, right? You mentioned the BABIP stuff, but he will get on base. That's a thing always that he does. He might walk 100 times this year. If he plays enough, he might walk 100 times. But my number 3 is Christian Yelich. He's almost like the inverted Randy Arozarena, the unheralded 5-tool player. Actually, he has no arm, so 4 out of 5 tools, he gets a solid check mark. He's one of the best base runners in the game, despite being in his 30s now. The power is not quite all the way back, but he actually slugged his highest since 2019. He slugged 447 last year. ISO around 170, which I mentioned with Randy was all right. 28 steals, but only 3 caught stealing, so 28 of 31. Excellent at advancing, picking and choosing spots, going first to third, second to home, first to home, stuff like that. 34 doubles, that's his most since his MVP season. 19 home runs, that's his most since 2019. And he's shifted into more of a leadoff role, and I think that is an excellent spot for him. He could play some, I would say first base, but Hoskins is there now. He might DH some. You hide the arm a little bit. He's all right defensively range-wise. He just doesn't have much of an arm in left anymore. So I have Christian Yelich number 3.
I mean, that's fair. I'm going to be honest. I didn't even consider Yelich for this list.
So here,
And-
I'll throw something out there, which is that, again, we're going by, at least by roster resource, Christian Yelich was listed as a DH. So
that was an oversight on my part. My apologies.
That's the issue, is that that's part of the reason why I did not consider him for this list.
Okay. My
Fair
apologies.
enough.
I just
No,
assumed.
you're good. Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair. No, you're good, man. I'll go with my number 3 then next. For my number 3, I'm going with a guy that has been talked about in trade rumors forever, it feels like, and that's Brian Reynolds. I think that Reynolds is a very interesting player, and there's a reason why he's always on the trade block. He is one that brings in a lot of interest from other teams because of his bat. His bat as an outfielder is very good. Like, you take a look, you compare him to a lot of the left fielders that we currently have, like, as the number 1 guys, and he beats out a lot of them when it comes to batting war. When it comes to what he's able to do, like, with the bat in his hands, it is very impressive, especially on a team like the Pirates, where he doesn't have a whole lot of, extra star power around him, doesn't have a whole lot of extra stuff to go along with him. He still continues to stand out over and over and over again, where he says, even if others won't help me out on it, I'll do it myself. You talked about another guy that I will, he's going to be a little bit later on my list, and I'll explain that when we get to it. But for when it comes to Reynolds right now, he's a guy that a lot of people really like, and for obviously good reason. He's a decent defender. He's got a great bat. on his shoulders. And because of that, like, how can you not put him high on this list? He does everything you need him to at an elite level.
Reynolds is a solid player. He's right on the edge for me. I think his defense, I think, is a little. It's not as good as a guy like Hap, who's
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
yeah, it's not. Yeah.
yeah, and
I
also
never said that he was an elite
yeah,
defender. I was saying that as long as like he's serviceable enough. Because in left field, I don't know how you guys like mentality on all this is, but like I feel that left field is probably the least needed for defense
oh yeah,
of the
I
three outfield
agree. Yes,
positions. Yeah.
uh-huh.
So like it doesn't matter as much. Like, don't get me wrong, you still want someone there who can, catch the ball, can make good relay throws, can hit the cutoff man and all that, but it's not like as important as like a center fielder or even a right
Yeah,
fielder for that
I
matter.
agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
so and the thing is, I'll mention another guy who didn't make my list, but Kyle Schwarber was a guy who I think we all had on our list last year. I believe he was number 5 for all of us. And the issue with Schwarber is that he's so bad defensively. He's worse defensively than I thought. That's the thing. Is yes, he hit 47 home runs again. He draws a lot of walks. He strikes out like crazy. Whatever. He hit below the Mendoza line, but he also had negative 21 defensive runs saved last year. And that's why going forward, he should probably be a DH. That's the thing. Is that
Oh yeah, 100%.
there's a point where yes, I don't think defense matters as much out in left field, but there becomes a point where it's just kind of egregious. And I really like watching Schwarber play, but like this, it's very much an issue. So let's move on to our number 2 left fielder. Splash, why don't you kick us off there? Who's at your second ranking?
So my number 2 is Nolan Jones of the Colorado Rockies.
Wow. Okay.
As Mac mentioned, the home road splits, not a concern playing at Coors. There's no, Coors effect. Well, there is a Coors effect, but it's not a pronounced Coors effect boosting his stats or yanking down his road stats. 2020 season, impressive arm. I think he'll get better in the field, but hey, guess what? If he doesn't, Brenton Doyle is over, 50 feet over to his right, so it doesn't matter. To his left, so it doesn't matter. Steals bases. I think he's going to be closer to a 5-tool player, as close to it as we're going to get from the traditional left fielders from the list, because my number 1 is a convert from center field. But I like what Jones brings. He can play both corner spots. He can play third base a little bit too. He's sort of like a better version of Chris Bryant, and I cannot believe I'm saying that in the year of our Lord 2024.
Which, by the way,
That's
happy
his
Willie
Rockies
Mays
teammate.
Day and happy
Exactly.
Ken Griffey Day. It's 24/24 today.
Yes, it is.
So, all right. I have a feeling I'm probably gonna make some people mad with my number 2. I'll go with Stephen Kwan. I think that Stephen Kwan is a very interesting case because hear me out for just a second. I just came with this comparison and I feel kind of weird about it. He is a great contact hitter. He's exactly what you need. And when I think of great contact hitters, I think of Luis Reyes right now, right? So what happens if you take a little bit of that contact and add it to the defense? You get Stephen Kwan. Kwan is a good, very good defensive guy, but also is exceptionally good about getting on base, about getting the bat on the ball. He doesn't strike out all that often. He has a good line drive ability, but also he's very good in the clutch. We've seen him make great at bats over and over and over again. And if you ever just need the ball to be put in play, on the Guardians, yeah, you probably would want J Ram first, but number 2 is probably, I would say, Kwan. Stephen Kwan, I think, is an amazing player, and I think that he is a criminally underrated left fielder right now. And in this list, where like the list is kind of weak, he was competing for number 1 for a little bit with me. But no, he's number 2 because number 1, I have a specific quote I want to use for him.
So Kwan, I believe, was number 2 for us last year. He definitely took us. The thing is, so his defense was still great. His bat took enough of a step back for me that I couldn't put him on my list anymore. It's just, it'd be one thing if he had hit close to 300 again, but he hit 268. His slugging dropped from 400 to 370. He only has 710 OPS, which is only an 100 OPS plus. So while I would like him to be a guy at the top of my lineup because he steals and he gets on base at a decent enough rate, I mean that regression is. I feel like we're probably going to see more of like an 100 to 110 OPS plus from him compared to what we saw in 2022 when he was a 124 OPS plus. So at number two, I have Randy Rosarena. Actually, so Splash, I know you brought up some concerns about his hitting. The bigger concern to me is actually his defense. He was only 10th percentile in range with -6 outs above average. And it's not like his arm was particularly great either, also only in the 10th percentile. But he's still 2020 guy. He had 23 homers, which is a career high, still 22 bases, 789 OPS, which is actually higher than what he had in 2022. Another 120 OPS plus, another year where he was at least 20% better than league average. He made his first All-Star game this year, if you wouldn't believe it. So all around, yes, he has taken a little bit of a step back over the last couple of years, although his wins above replacement was actually higher in 2023. I think he's a solid all-around player, and he's very fun to watch. So he's number two. I think if uh, with the position changes, he's number two. That's the tough part, is that I think Splash and I have the same number one, and our number one was a center fielder and at the end of this year. So anyway, let's move on to our top spot. Alex, why don't you go ahead and kick us off? Who's your number one left fielder?
All right, so for my number one left fielder, I would like to first read the following quote from one Hall of Famer, Shaquille O'Neal. That was, "I owe you an apology. I wasn't really familiar with your game." And that's for Randy Arozarena. I have not been a fan of Randy for a while. And that's public knowledge at this point. I have talked him down a lot. And my main thing was that he never showed up during the regular season enough. He only ever showed up in the playoffs. That's how we know the name Randy Arozarena is. He played extremely well in the playoffs, then got the chance to start the regular season. People were wondering, oh, how is he going to do? He's pretty bad. He wasn't great when he first started out. But over the course of last year, my man balled out. Like, I drafted him in my fantasy baseball league last year just to trade him away because he knew other people overvalued him. As I kept watching the stats, I'm like, oh, no, this guy balling, this guy playing. And he was absolutely awesome. And especially when right now you have such a weak overall left field class, he's one of the guys that truly does stand above around a lot of people, in my opinion. You look at what he does, right? I brought up the offensive stats here for Brian Reynolds here, and for Arozarena, he is one of the best hitting left fielders according to Fangraphs at an 18.8 batters WAR. Like, don't get me wrong, the defense is interesting. I'm not gonna say it's great defense. I'm gonna say that he has flashy defense. That he will make a big play, but also make a lot of really bad plays too. But you take a look at what he does hitting wise. He's expected to have an xWOBA of 346 here with a slugging 448 and still an batting average of 262. Like, the dude just mashes. He rakes all night, day, year. So for that, Randy Arozarena is my number one left fielder going into 2024.
You know, I feel a poetic sense here. My number one is Brandon Nimmo. You have come around on Randy. I have not come around on Brandon Nimmo because I've been around on Brandon Nimmo, and I have often gone to bat for a Mets player who Mets fans don't seem to like because he wasn't on the field a lot.
I'll say that for a while there was this dumb perception within the fan base that Brandon Nimmo was only a fourth outfielder. So I hope that perception is dead now. Please.
Think he is an exceptional hitter. He has a career OPS plus, I believe, over 130, and that has been the case year over year, over year, over year, over year, whether he was playing 20 games or 150 games. Doesn't offer much as a base runner, but you know, he's a solid defensive center fielder. I would imagine he will be a good defensive left fielder. He gets on base a lot. He hit for a lot more power last year than he had been in previous years, so plenty of value in that. And he's just such a great pest at the top of the order. I hate playing the Mets because Brandon Nimmo is going to make your starting pitcher leave the game in the first inning because he's going to work some 17 pitch at bat 3 times in a row somehow all in the first inning. So Nimmo is my number one.
Yeah, and I have Nimmo number one too. Really, I was already a fan of his, and I understand that there was some concern about giving him an 8-year contract, but I mean, I think this year, so the strikeouts went up, yes, but the trade-off here is that he also hit 24 home runs, which is a career high. He drove in 68 runs, which I understand. I'm not a huge RBI guy, but that was also a career high. He slugged 466, which is the highest he's had over the course of a full season since 2018, which was his first real full season. His average exit velocity was a career high by a solid margin, 91.6 miles per hour. He had the highest hard hit rate of his career, the lowest ground ball rate, excluding his injury shortened 2019, the highest fly ball rate, again, excluding that 2019 shortened season. I'm really happy he's moving to left field because I do think his defense took a bit of a step back, but I think with Harrison Bader in center and Nimmo in left, this is a much improved defensive outfield. And really, there's a lot of red on his Statcast page, which I feel like that's the first time we could say that about him in his career. So I'm really happy that Nimmo's a Met for a while. He'll probably retire Met. I mean, heck, there's even a chance he could have his number retired if he keeps at it. He could also surpass Ed Kranepool for most games played as a Met. So yeah, I'm a huge Brandon Nimmo fan. I'm glad that the baseball world is finally starting to realize that he's a good player. I think next up is trying to get him to an all-star game for the first time. But yeah, like I said, I'm perfectly fine with sacrificing some swings and misses for some extra power. I think 24 home runs this year. I could see him putting up 25 to 30 next year. And like Slash was saying, he's a prototypical leadoff man. I think for the modern game, he gets on base. He did cut down his walks a little bit, but like I said, it was for that power. So he's a guy who gets on base and can hit for power, and he's not necessarily a speed demon, but he has above average sprint speed. He doesn't steal a lot, but 28 feet per second is perfectly fine. So he's my number one. Splash and I are somehow agreeing once again on a top spot. I didn't think this was possible, but here we are.
Especially on a Met.
Exactly, yeah. I was not expecting that either. But anyways, that'll do it for our rankings. Let us know what you guys think. Maybe drop your own rankings at LAR_baseball on Twitter. I'm sure you probably disagreed with us at some point. Anyways, it's time for everyone's favorite segment of every show, and that is trivia. And today, Splash will take over for that, so take it away.
Hello, boys and girls. We have the Mac versus Alex Cup today. I have 7 questions for you.
Oh, okay.
We have it's going to be a bit of a pre-tiebreaker. So if you go first, you can win, right? It's like home field advantage.
Okay.
So if you correctly get the quote-unquote tiebreaker, you have the advantage. First one to just say the answer will get the advantage.
Okay.
Who was the starting left fielder for the Atlanta Braves in MLB Power Pros 2008?
Oh.
Also, my mom's favorite player. Shout out to my mom. Her birthday was yesterday as a recording.
Ooh, I think I might have it. I'm not actually sure though. Mark Kotze?
Mark Kotze was the starting center fielder.
Wait, is it? No, there's no way it was Andrew Jones.
No, he was in LA by this point.
It was in LA. Okay.
Okay.
Number 23.
Matt Diaz.
Yeah, Matt Diaz.
Yes,
that is correct.
That was gonna be my next guess. Yeah.
All right, Mac, you have the advantage. Your question here is: which team plays in a ballpark that has the mini green monster in left field?
The Cleveland Guardians, Progressive Field.
That is correct. All right, Alex.
Okay.
Just name the team here.
Yep. Okay.
One of my childhood memories is a ball hit by Miguel Olivo to left field for this team's ballpark that Ryan Rayburn hit around the warning track, and it went over the wall. Team or ballpark?
So wait, I'm trying to figure out, like, Miguel Olivo hit it,
yes,
but
he hit the baseball to left field, and it went off of Ryan Rayburn's glove multiple times and over the wall for a home run.
Isn't that? So wait, are you? I'm just trying to figure out which team
just give me
you're
the
looking
team
for.
Yeah,
no, yeah,
Rayburn's team.
Detroit.
That is correct. All right, Mac. Another iconic play. A ball was hit down the left field line in this ballpark, or for this against this, or by a player of this team at this ballpark. Yoenis Cespedes comically bobbled the ball, then unleashed basically a Star Wars laser to steal an Ichiro line to gun the runner out at home. Name the ballpark.
Angels Stadium, Anaheim.
There you go. All right. Alex.
Okay.
Name the mascot of the Boston Red Sox who is named after the Green Monster.
Oh, Wally.
That is correct.
Nice.
Max, sorry.
I'm not Alex.
I have called Alex Bregman a merchant of these multiple times. Name the feature in Houston's left field.
Crawford boxes.
That is correct.
You.
There are a lot of players that are merchants of that.
Yes.
I will
Yes,
say.
they are.
All right, Alex. A player that we talked about pre-show that I called Larry the Lobster broke the scoreboard in left field in this ballpark.
Huh?
Power hitting former MVP.
Oh, Larry Walker?
Oh my!
In this ballpark. But
in the ballpark? Course?
This would be Giancarlo Stanton breaking the scoreboard in left field at Marlins Park.
Oh, okay.
It was called Marlins Park
now.
Back then.
Yes, now Lone Depot Park. And Mac, to win the game, name the moniker of the left field wall that now resides at Orioles Park at Camden Yards.
Wait, it
has a name.
What?
Yes, it has an. I don't know if it's an official name, but it has like a colloquial name.
Splash Mountain?
No, it's called Mount Waltimore.
All right,
Oh, wow.
This is the first time I've heard about this.
Yeah, same.
Oh, really? Darn. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mac, you win 3-2. You had the advantage. You took care of the advantage. So, congratulations, pal. Good job. Any notable left field facts you want to give us?
I mean, I think, one that I don't know if you were going to include on this, but Citi Field, before they changed the dimensions of the outfield, the left field wall was 17 feet high. So it was called the Great Wall of Flushing, which it effectively ruined Jason Bay's career.
Jason Bay, Mets legend, of course. I was going to say, yes, name the ballpark that Barry Bonds flipped off Andy Van Slyken and did not get the throw home in time from left field.
Fulton County Stadium, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
I got a left field thing that'd be kind of fun. So I'll make this into the form of a question for you guys. So Seattle moved in their left field because it used to be covered by a scoreboard. So now they made it a traditional wall. So I enter a traditional wall. What the restaurant is named after what Mariner Hall of Famer that now occupies that space?
Edgar, right?
Yep, it's Edgar's Cantina.
Edgar,
yep. Yeah, so basically it used to just be the big scoreboard out left, so it made right-handed power hitters not want to play in Seattle because it was just exactly, yeah. Listen, congratulations again to Hall of Famer now, Adrian Beltre. But yeah, so what they did is that they kept the scoreboard, they just moved the wall in and made it basically a pit where now it's Edgar's Cantina. And it's actually kind of awesome.
That's sort of what the Mets did with the Great Wall of Flushing is they moved it in. And they created, it was first called the Party City deck in left field, which you have to pay an exorbitant price to sit in. I think it's now called the M&M Sweet Seats or something. But I remember when that stadium first opened, like, oh my God, hitting home runs was, well, I remember in 2009, the first year of Citi Field, Daniel Murphy led the team with 12 home runs. 12 home runs to lead the team. Yes, it's because Carlos Beltran got hurt too, and David Wright got hurt, but like, I remember just watching like Jason Bay when he came from Fenway Park, where his swing was just perfect for the Green Monster to trying to hit a ball over the Great Wall of Flushing. All of his home runs became doubles or flyouts. It was a struggle. But anyways, thank you for that trivia segment. I like that a lot, and I would definitely be willing to run that back at some point. So
definitely, that's a good, simple, just straight up trivia. I like
straight up.
Yeah, I love the ballpark dimension stuff. Like maybe one day we should I should pull up MLB Power Pros and just read off the descriptions for the ballparks.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Although they have changed.
Yes. So it would
Or
have to be the 2008 stadiums.
yes, so like Turner Field instead of Truist,
Shea
Completely,
Shea instead
Stadium.
of City Field,
completely confused Mac
Old
with
Yankee Stadium,
by using the description from the Evelyn Power
Panpacker
Pro
Park.
State. Yeah, Pat Packer Park.
I don't
Exactly
think
what
it
I was thinking of.
does it have one?
I think it has to, right?
I don't remember
Huh.
because I guess it does because it tells you about the lucky holes.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
I don't know if what was the Marlins Stadium called back then? Because it's changed
Dolphin
that how
Stadium.
it was called Dolphin Stadium
Was it
by
actually
then.
called Dolphin Stadium back then? I thought they were still using a different name.
I think
Because
yeah, it was Dolphin Stadium.
Okay.
that stadium had so many. It was like Joe Robbie Stadium, then it
Pro
was
Player Stadium.
Pro Player Park, yeah, Pro Player Park, and then Dolphin Stadium, then Dolphins Stadium, then
Mhm.
Land Sharks. I remember when it was
Yeah.
Land Shark Stadium,
Oh my
then it was
gosh.
Sun Life Field. Like it
Uh-huh.
changed the name so many times. I think it's Hard
Marlins
Rock
Park
Stadium
and now
now.
Lone Depot Park. It's like,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Now it's Hard Rock Stadium. So that stadium does exist still. It's just not played there. The Marlins don't play there anymore.
yeah, yes, it's
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Coral Gable. No, I guess the University of Miami, Florida plays it.
University of
They're
Miami is at
from
Coral Gables.
Coral.
Yes. So technically, it's not in Miami, by the way. Anyways, we are going to end this show the same way we end every show, and that is with the moment to ourselves, 60 seconds or so to talk about whatever is on your mind, baseball or not, or sports or not. So, who here wants to go first with their 60-second splash? Your time starts in three, two, one, go.
I encourage all of you to surround yourself with people that believe in you. This doesn't need to be like a rational belief, but just in general, they believe you can do good things, great things, even. You can have disagreements with them, that's fine, but be around people that appreciate your value, appreciate what you do, even if it's different from what they do, even if it's different from what other people do. Make sure you surround yourself with, again, it doesn't have to be positive 24/7. You can have, disagreements, you can have fights, if you will, but make sure it's all pulling in the same direction. And, just surround yourself with people that bring out the best in you.
All right,
I
and
love
I
that message. I
100%,
love
I
that.
100% agree with that message.
Hmm.
Alex, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'll go next.
All right. Your time starts in three, two, one, go.
So I'm gonna go to wrestling for just a second here, and that is because WWE has potentially fumbled the bag for one of the biggest times in the Triple H era, and that is, believe it or not, with Dwayne the Rock Johnson. As Dwayne was brought in again, and it looks like now the plans are to have him face off against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, but it is sparked huge outrage as the clip of that has now become the most disliked video in wrestling history on YouTube. And now I believe it says over 400,000 dislikes because people are angry because it just completely invalidated the Royal Rumble win for one Cody Rhodes. That has started a Twitter go through of hashtag we want Cody. And I'm 100% on that train. Do not put Roman Reigns versus The Rock as number one. Let Cody, who won the Rumble, let him have his thing. Let him end the story that he wants to do. I really hope that there's just going to be something that will happen that's going to be a complete shock and swerve that will bring it back to what it's supposed to be. But right now, prospects not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even a wrestling guy, and I've been hearing about that. So I get what you're saying. So, anyways, I'm gonna get going with my moment to myself right now. So I've actually been watching the NBA a lot this year, and it's because of the Knicks. I'll just say that their winning streak got snapped last night. They won 9 games in a row before that. It's just every feel like every time between for a while between the end of the NFL season and the start of the MLB season, there just hasn't been a lot of sports to distract me because the Knicks have just not been good for most of my life, and now they're finally good. And it's just a fun time to be a New York sports fan. I look forward to the Mets season, and I think the Mets and Yankees could both be competitive this year. But I think that, the Knicks have provided a good distraction for me. Syracuse hasn't been great in basketball, but with the Knicks playing well, I'm enticed to go to another Knicks playoff game if they are there again. And yeah, this is just it's a fun time to be a New York sports fan right now. That was our moment to ourselves. And that will do it for our show today. Make sure to drop us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening. By the way, also go subscribe to our YouTube channel, Losses Above Replacement.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have a YouTube channel. Make sure to watch all of our stuff. Splash has been doing a great job, in particular, of posting shorts and other videos. So he's doing a great job. And also make sure to follow us on Twitter at LAR_baseball. Like I said, make sure to let us know if you agree or disagree with our rankings today. I'm sure you guys
We
all
also have a
opinions.
new logo. Go like
And
it.
yes,
It's really
we
cool.
do have a new logo. Shout out to Jack. Splash, what's his handle again on Twitter? Starblade?
Yeah, I think it's
It's like Starblade 630 or something like that.
At Starblade 125.
Yeah, so at Starblade 125, shout out Jack for creating us that logo. It's awesome. Also
So
follow
clean.
the rest of us. Yeah, also follow the rest of us on Twitter. Follow Alex at the Sports Guy 242. Follow Splash at Mr. Splashman 19, and follow myself at Mathias_A_K. But from everyone at Lost Above Replacement, thank you for listening. Stay safe, and I hope to see you all real soon. Take care.